everybody. So today we are making the Power Porky Porky Burgers. So this is a recipe we put on the blog a little while ago, and it actually incorporates organ meats into the burger, so you can actually up your nutritional density of the food you eat. And because some people are not very open to liver and they think it tastes bad, and especially here in the US, or they're just weirded out by it, I wanted to design a burger that incorporated the liver but disguised the taste of it. So we came up with a couple different recipes, and one of them is the Power Porky Burger. And we're going to start with our liver. Now, we've tried out some recipes online that we found that incorporated organ meats, liver, and things into the burgers. And what we found was most of the burgers got a very mushy texture, because liver itself is a much softer meat. And so when you mixed it with the other ground meat, it didn't have a firmed up texture. So what we wanted to do is figure out a way to get the liver to have a firmer texture, so that you actually had a burger that held up and didn't fall apart very easy. And there's a few steps that we did to do that. One of the things that you want to do that could help you firm up the liver is if you marinate the liver first in an acid. You can use a little bit of apple cider vinegar mixed with water or yogurt, and you just make sure you use enough yogurt to cover the liver, leave it in the fridge for overnight, and the acid will actually help pull out some of that funky liver taste that throws people off a lot, and it will also give the liver a bit of a firmer texture. Now, one other trick we found is that if you sear the liver up very lightly, you can pull some of the moisture out of it and actually give it a texture that when you do the grind, it doesn't become a complete mush. So here we go. What I got some nice liver right here from our friend at Walker Farms, Joan. She raises some fantastic beef cattle. And what I'm going to do with this liver, like I said, is just give it a light sear. I'm not even going to throw any seasoning on it. Rinse my hand because you get liver stuff on there. I'm not going to throw any seasoning or anything like that on it right now. It's just the liver. And when I'm done, I'm going to transfer it to this bowl right here. Grab a pair of tongs. And I don't want to cook the liver all the way through, because the liver is actually going to be cooked when you cook it with your burgers. So I don't want to overcook the liver. Overcooking the liver can actually create more of a liver taste to it, a funkier taste. So I just want to pull some of that moisture out and give it a light sear before it heads into the grinder. Alright, so while we're waiting for that to sear up, I want to show you what we're using today. Today we are using the KitchenAid mixer with the grinder attachment. Now, we are using this model. I happen to come with two different grinds. This is the small hole grind and this is the steak grind, the larger hole, where you're going to use the steak grind on this one. Now, when you're using the KitchenAid too, you want to make sure that you keep these things clean, because they can get a lot of germs in there if you don't clean them properly. So when you're ready to clean, make sure you disassemble it properly, stick it in the dishwasher, disinfect it, especially if you're going to be making more than one type of meat that day, or more than one type of burger. That way you don't cross-contaminate. So I'm going to pop that larger grind blade down in there. The collar goes on. Make sure that the collar is firmly attached. Alright, we're going to take the liver out. It's still pretty raw. That's what we want, and I'm going to set it aside to cool off just a little bit before we cut it up. Now make sure this collar is on there pretty tight, because what I notice as the machine vibrates, the collar can actually start loosening up and unscrewing by itself on its own. So make sure it's nice and tight on there. We're going to take this front cover off right here, and it plugs directly into the motor. Okay, and make sure it's screwed down nice and tight too, because this thing will wobble quite a bit. Now, we're using pork shoulder. Pork shoulder for this burger is a much firmer meat. So when you grind it, it's going to actually have a better texture to hold up for your burger, to make your burger hold together better. And your key to grinding, in this case, is cold. The pork is actually taking a trip through the freezer, and it's still fairly solid. And you want the meat to be cold when it goes through the grinder, because then it will be less likely to turn into mush. Let me set this aside real quick. I got to use a knife to separate it because it did get a little, they're already cut into strips, but it did get a little fused together. So you want to make sure there's strips that are big enough to fit down the hole in the hopper here. You don't want them too big. So depending on what kind of grinder that you're using, some of the hoppers have a little bit larger of an opening at the top, so you can leave the meat a little bit thicker. And some of them are, I think the KitchenAid here is on a bit of the smaller end. So I actually have to cut this up a little bit more to get it through that hopper. All right. Alrighty. Now, KitchenAid makes actually two meat grinders, versions of the meat grinder. They have the plastic one, and they also have the stainless steel one. We have the plastic one. If you want to opt for the stainless steel one, it's a bit more expensive, but you know, it's stainless steel, so it'll probably hold up for you a lot longer. Alright, so we are going to go ahead and flip her on and start feeding the pork shoulder through. Alright, so we got this little thing right here, which I forgot to grab, but it helps push the meat down. You don't want to use a lot of pressure. If you really put pressure on this, you could end up breaking your machine. So you just want to kind of put a little bit of pressure down to help it go through. Now, when you're making ground meat, you want to use a good amount of muscle tissue in there, because that's what's going to hold up and keep everything together. The fat's going to add flavor, and it's going to add that ability to get that kind of crispy sear on the outside. But your muscle meat's what's going to hold everything together. So you want a good ratio, which is shoulder and butt cuts are pretty good for that, or chuck if you're using red meat. They're using cow. And if you are using a leaner meat, let's say heart, which is a lean meat, which you can definitely grind up in here, and it's more of a firmer muscle, you could always add fat to it if you want to keep it within your keto macro ratios. Another great thing about grinding your meat at home is when you buy commercially ground meat, they often mix it between different animals. There'll be maybe 10, 15 cows in a vat of ground meat when they put together, and if one of those cows is contaminated, or pigs or chickens or whatever, then all of it becomes contaminated. So you can actually limit contamination by grinding it yourself, or you could actually ask your butcher to grind a piece of meat, and a lot of grocery stores that have butchers will do that for you. We're going to work that last bit of meat through, but I want to get the liver in. I'm going to slice it into strips. Alright. And here we go. Now you'll notice when the liver comes out and it starts going through, it's going to be a lot mushier than the pork shoulder is. Alright, so it's all down in there. Now, there's some good reasons why you might want to incorporate liver into your diet. It is extremely loaded with micronutrients, a lot of vitamin A, a lot of leucine, very healthy for your eyes, for your liver function. It's basically a multivitamin mineral concentrated in a very bioavailable form. Alright, so I think we're done pushing stuff out now. I'm going to go ahead and get this in here. So, I'm going to set this aside for just a moment so that I can get in here and work. Alright, now I'm going to pull my ingredients over. I've got my onions, my garlic, and I've got my seasoning, my chili powder, chipotle powder, a little garlic powder. It's a little humid here today, so things are kind of sticking. I've got my cumin. These are dry chili powder, dry chili burgers. There's a little mustard, onion powder, and I'm going to throw in my peppers. Now the recipe calls for jalapeno, but if you don't have jalapeno, or if it's too spicy, you can switch out to bell pepper. If you want spicier, then you can go with a hotter pepper, just about equal size. And if you go with a hotter pepper and you really don't like liver taste that much, it can actually help disguise the taste of that liver. We have a little bit of a keto sweetener. And now we're going to use a bit of apple cider vinegar. That will also add some acid to your dish to help cover up the taste. And we're going to give it a little bit of umami with the coconut aminos. And I have right here some konjac flour. And I'm going to sprinkle some konjac flour over the top. And as I mix, I'm going to incorporate more and more. What the konjac flour is going to do is it's going to help absorb some of that moisture and provide some structure to your burger and help hold it together better. My binder is my egg right there. And we're going to get our hands in here, get dirty, and get it all mixed up. You want to really incorporate everything very well. And you'll find too, after you work this stuff through, it might be a bit on the mushy side. And if it is too mushy, which generally it's going to be because it's using organ meats, liver, then after you're done mixing everything, put it in the fridge or the freezer for a half hour to an hour, about an hour if it's in the fridge, freezer, maybe 15 minutes to a half hour, and get it nice and cold. It will firm up for you, and then you can put it into the patty shapes that you want. If you got a burger mold, you could use it. If you have no burger mold, then you just make kind of meatballs with it and flatten them out. All right. And if you don't want to use your fingers, you could get in there with a spatula or something like that. I just get in there with my hands because I'm a caveman. All right. So everything's pretty well incorporated. It's very sticky right now because it is a bit on the mushy side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands, stick this in the freezer, and then I'm going to come back with you and we're going to form it into some patties. All right, everybody. See you on the next side. Hey, everybody, we're back. So I allowed the Power Porky dry chili burgers to firm up a bit in the refrigerator. But one thing I forgot to show you was we ground bacon into this. So make sure you check the recipe because all the ingredients proportions are listed there, and it does list bacon. Don't forget the bacon. Don't be a me and forget the bacon. Bacon is very important. So I went ahead and ground the bacon and mixed it in and put it in the fridge to firm up. The konjac flour has done its job, and so has the cold temperature, and we have a nice, much more firm mixture. It still is a little bit sticky. So what we're going to do is we're going to form palm-sized meatballs. We're going to take some parchment paper and we are going to put those meatballs between the parchment paper and just give them a little squish down. Now you can make these as large as you want them, but just realize that they will affect your cooking time. So again, we make the meatball. And I'm just kind of freestyling here. You can measure them out if you want them all to be perfect, the same size. But I'm going to do the kind of nice, cool, hand-done patties. And put them on there. I am putting paper between both sides because it's going to make it a lot easier to get them out of the freezer. And also, as they sit there, the weight of the patties that are on top are going to kind of flatten the patties that are on the bottom as well. Now, you can make this mixture ahead of time and have it in the freezer as kind of a meal prep thing, ready to go for whenever you're hungry. And it actually works better, I found, to work them as a frozen burger when you're ready to cook them. If you cook them while they're frozen and just throw them in the pan, then they tend to hold up better. Whereas when we were throwing them in the pan when they weren't frozen, they tended to fall apart and the mushiness kind of went back. So you get these all nice and formed up into your burgers and just put them in a nice container. We got the Pyrex right here, but you can put them in some sort of container that you can freeze. and throw them in the freezer for whenever you're ready to cook them, and we will come back on another video and show you cooking them. Hey everybody, we're back, and we have the Power Porky Burger, dry chili burgers, and we have the Super Mother Clucker burgers. Both of these frozen solid. We're going to heat up our pan, get it nice and hot, put a layer of oil in. The thing about these burgers is they can be fragile, so putting them on a grill may not be the best plan, but if you have a pan just like this Lodge right here, you could actually use this. In just a moment, the gerbil is making a guest appearance. Jojo, down! So, she wants burgers too. You're going to put a thin layer of oil onto your pan so to help keep things from sticking. And these things are great. If you want to do these on the grill, I would suggest putting a griddle surface down, and that'll help you keep these burgers intact. They are a bit fragile from the organ meats that are used in there. So, the trick to these is you put them down and you don't touch them. There we go. If you get into flipping these things a lot, they're going to fall apart. So what you want to do is you want to put them down and leave them there. The cooking time can vary based on how thick and how large these burgers actually are. So if you make a really big burger, you're going to want to cook it a bit longer. If you're making a burger that's moderate size, smaller, maybe a slider burger, they may only take about 5 minutes per side. Oil the pan first also, so again, that's just common sense to prevent sticking. And you can use whatever oil you want to use. Right now I'm using avocado oil, but if you want to use some beef tallow, some lard, something like that, you can definitely do that. So anyway, this is probably the moment in time where we're going to speed up the film and just fast forward watching the burgers cook. Alright, we're back. So, we are now going to flip the burgers. And when you flip them, you will see that they are actually pretty fragile. Okay? And then again, after you flip them, don't touch them. If you try to keep doing too much, they will fall apart. Now, if you're using a cast iron skillet, one thing that you might want to have instead of a plastic nylon spatula like this is maybe a metal spatula. That'll help you get underneath them a little bit better. So, but if you look at the chicken one, because of the cheese that's in there, that Parmesan, I'm actually starting to get a little bit of a crusty cheese layer on the burger patty, which is really nice. The sweetener that's in the chili burger is starting to give me a little crusty effect on the chili burger. You can serve these, they're great just on their own with whatever sauce. Maybe put them with a salad and make a burgers type salad. again, the chicken burger is fantastic with breakfast foods. So if you want to make like a sandwich with the chicken burger, maybe a poached egg on top, you can use some Fox Hill buns, which are really great. They're fantastic for burger buns. I've used sauteed portobello mushrooms before. And if you want, you can check out our video for bacon wrapped onion rings. And when you do the bacon wrapped onion rings, that's a great side, especially for the Power Porky dry chili burgers. For pairing the Porky burgers, I recommend either a nice sharp cheddar cheese or a nice smoked cheese to go along with that chili flavor. So smoked cheddar would be fantastic, but also a smoked Gouda or smoked Swiss would be great on there. Top it with minimal stuff. Honestly, if you just want to leave it with some mayo, some cheese, maybe a little ketchup or barbecue sauce, and you can put lettuce and tomato on there if you want, but I kind of like that chili to come out a bit. Also, if you have a good recipe for a keto cornbread, you can make cornbread round muffins large enough and use those for the burger buns, which is really good. So the cornbread, the keto cornbread, they usually use extracts like buttered popcorn extract in there to give it a cornbread type flavor. All right, and when you flip them, they don't take as long to cook on the other side, but you do want to cook them there for a while because as you cook the one side, the first side, the top side kind of went soft. So flipping it over, cooking it down there, getting them a nice sear helps firm up that other side as well. The konjac, again, is going to give it a bit more structure, but they still are delicate. And I haven't found a way for the organ meats on the burger, unless you're chopping them into chunks. If you're grinding them, I haven't found a way to really make the burger not as strong as a real burger, but this is the strongest way I've found to make them so far. Alright, so this is probably another part where we're going to fast forward a little bit.
I couldn't figure out how to get that thunder jacket on. So she's locked in her cage because you can't hear her screaming so badly from there. But then of course as soon as I took her thing off I just couldn't grab her anymore.
Yeah. It's alright. Sure.
Raining.
It is. Where's the cat?
Everybody's terrified.
We're all hiding.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so you can see our chicken burger is about done. It's got a nice firm texture. It's holding up real well. Now that both sides are cooked and some of that moisture's out and absorbed, the heat's also going to help the konjac absorb some more of that moisture. But we have a delicious mother clucker.
Yum!
Again, sorry, Sam Jackson. The pork one takes a little bit longer to cook because it's pork and bacon. as you can see, it's getting done on that side as well. We got a nice little sear. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat off. And there we go. We got our Power Porky Burgers right there. These things are very good. And honestly, you can't even really tell that there's any liver or any organ meats in there. So especially if you're trying to get your kids to eat the organ meats and you want to disguise it and send it in on a Trojan horse, give them a burger. Great way to go. All right, everybody. See you later.